Hey everyone. So many of you asked for a deep dive on faith and relationships, and well, we found a good one for you.
Yeah.
It's about how millennials and Gen Z who follow Yahweh, how they're navigating love and relationships and all that.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to be looking at an episode of Faith Unfiltered. It's another podcast
Right.
by a fellow millennial, Gen Z, follower of Yahweh.
Okay.
And they did a really interesting episode about two couples from the Bible, Jacob and Rachel.
Yeah.
And then that kind of more dramatic pair, Samson and Delilah.
Right.
So get ready to unpack what these ancient love stories can teach us about relationships today.
I think it's fascinating how these stories, written thousands of years ago,
Right.
they still resonate with like the relationship struggles that people are facing today. It's like some things just never change, right?
Totally, yeah. Okay, let's get into it. So Jacob and Rachel, total love at first sight situation. Right?
Yeah.
Jacob works for 7 years to marry Rachel. And the Bible says it felt like just a few days to him because of his love.
Talk about some serious relationship goals.
Yeah.
I mean, who wouldn't want someone to be that devoted to them,
It does sound, it sounds really dreamy. But remember, back then, things were very different.
Right.
Arranged marriages, they were common. And working for a bride's family was kind of like the norm.
Oh, okay.
So it's, more complicated than just like a simple whirlwind romance. Even though, the Bible definitely highlights like the passionate love they had.
Okay, so not just like a Nicholas Sparks novel, huh?
Not quite, no.
Okay.
I think what's really powerful about Jacob's story, though, is the commitment and the sacrifice involved, 7 years? That's a long time.
Seriously.
Can you even imagine waiting 7 years for a first date, let alone a marriage?
Oh my gosh, no.
And that goes against everything our instant gratification world teaches us, right?
Totally. And here's where it gets really interesting. Okay. Those dating apps that everyone's using now, they totally feed into that, right? Right.
Swipe, match, meet, and if it's not, amazing, right away.
Yeah,
NXT.
Exactly.
It's brutal out there.
I know, and, raises a really crucial point about building a relationship based on faith, right?
Oh.
Jacob and Rachel's story, it shows that true love it needs patience and dedication.
Mm-hmm.
He wasn't looking for like a quick fling. He was willing to invest years to be with her.
Yeah.
How often do we see that kind of commitment in the age of like Tinder?
Yeah, not very often. And I think that's actually something that a lot of us are craving.
Right.
Like we see all these picture perfect couples on Instagram, and it's easy to forget that real relationships, they take time.
Yeah.
They take effort.
And they need a shared foundation.
Oh, that's good.
And, let's not forget Jacob and Rachel, they were both following Yahweh. And that shared faith, it played a huge role in their relationship. And in the Faith Unfiltered episode, the host actually talks about how important that spiritual connection is, especially, when you're facing those inevitable challenges that come up.
Which, let's be real, everyone does.
Oh, yeah.
No relationship is sunshine and roses all the time.
Exactly.
No matter how good their Instagram filters make it look.
Yeah, it's about having someone who, shares your values, who supports you on your spiritual journey.
Right.
Think of it like you're both moving in the same direction,
Okay.
Towards Yahweh. And that shared purpose, it strengthens your bond.
That's a great analogy. It makes total sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have this beautiful picture of love, commitment, shared faith with Jacob and Rachel.
Mm-hmm.
But then Faith Unfiltered takes us to a totally different love story.
Right.
Samson and Delilah.
Oh, boy.
Buckle up, because this one is a wild ride.
For sure.
We all know how it ends. Betrayal, heartbreak, and, that dramatic haircut that goes down in history.
Yeah, talk about a cautionary tale. Samson and Delilah, they're like the ultimate example of what can happen when you let, passion cloud your judgment and you lose sight of your relationship with Yahweh.
For sure. You got Samson, this incredibly strong guy, falling head over heels for Delilah.
Right.
Who, let's be honest, had some ulterior motives going on.
Yeah, definitely.
Right.
And the podcast hosts, they really dive into the context here. Yeah. Samson, he was a judge chosen by Yahweh for a specific purpose to deliver Israel from the Philistines.
Mm-hmm.
His strength, it wasn't just physical, it was a direct gift from Yahweh.
Wow.
Tied to his covenant and symbolized by his, Nazirite vows.
Right.
Including, his uncut hair.
Okay.
So it's like his connection to Yahweh was literally woven into his very being.
Wow. It makes his downfall even more tragic.
It does.
Right.
Yeah.
He throws it all away for this woman who ultimately betrays him.
And it's not just about Delilah's manipulation either.
Okay.
The Faith Unfiltered host points out that Samson, he makes the choice to reveal his secret. He literally says, she pressed him daily with her words and urged him so that his soul was vexed to death.
Oh, wow.
I mean, talk about not setting boundaries. It's like, dude, run.
Right.
But no, he gives in, breaks his covenant, and loses everything.
It's tough.
No.
And that's where I see the parallel to modern relationships.
Yeah.
We can get so caught up in the excitement of a new relationship that we, ignore those red flags, those nagging feelings.
Yes, those gut feelings.
That something isn't quite right.
Exactly. And more importantly, we forget to ask ourselves, is this relationship aligned with my faith?
Oh, that's good.
Is it bringing me closer to Yahweh, or is it pulling me away?
That's such a good point. It's like we need to be checking in with ourselves.
Yes.
And with Yahweh, throughout the relationship.
Exactly.
Making sure we're still on the right path.
Yeah, and Samson's story, it shows us what can happen when we don't do that.
Right.
He let his feelings for Delilah just override his commitment to Yahweh.
Right.
And his purpose. It's a powerful reminder that even the strongest among us can fall when we stray from our spiritual foundation.
Oh, man. This is getting pretty intense.
I know, right?
I'm already, thinking about some of my past relationships and wondering if I was paying enough attention to those, spiritual red flags.
It happens, but, it's never too late to learn and grow.
True.
And that's what's so great about these stories, right? They offer, timeless wisdom that we can apply to our own lives no matter what stage of the relationship journey we're in.
Okay, so we've got these two, totally different love stories.
Yeah.
Jacob and Rachel, all about commitment and shared faith.
Right.
And then Samson and Delilah, a cautionary tale about the dangers of losing sight of what truly matters. So how do we actually take these lessons and apply them to the complexities of modern relationships? It's not like we're facing, Philistine armies or being tempted to reveal our superpowers to manipulative spies.
Yeah.
At least I hope not.
Huh. Well, maybe not literally, but the core principles, they still apply.
Right.
Even in our world of dating apps and social media and all that, it's about recognizing that our relationship with Yahweh, that should be the guiding force in all our relationships, especially the romantic ones.
This has been so insightful already, and we've only just scratched the surface.
Right.
I'm really starting to see how these, ancient stories can offer practical wisdom for my own relationship journey.
Yeah.
What I'm really curious about is how all this plays out in the real world,
okay,
in our daily lives.
That's exactly where we're headed next.
Okay.
We're going to dive deeper into how faith can practically impact modern relationships.
Okay.
From dating apps to marriage and everything in between.
All right. I can't wait. Stay tuned because we're just getting started. Okay, so we're back and ready to really get into how these biblical principles actually play out in modern relationships.
Yes.
I mean, it's one thing to, admire Jacob's dedication or learn from Samson's mistakes, but how do we actually translate that into real life?
Right.
Especially with all the pressures and distractions of today's dating scene.
And that's where it gets really interesting. A lot of people, they think faith and modern dating are just they don't mix.
Right.
But the Faith Unfiltered host actually brought up some research that challenges that idea.
Really? Yeah. Okay, I'm all ears.
Yeah, so get this. They cite studies from the National Marriage Project. And this is where it gets juicy. The data shows that couples who pray together and are active in their faith communities, they tend to have lower divorce rates.
Wait, hold up. You're telling me praying together could actually make your relationship stronger?
It seems that way.
I mean, I get the whole spiritual connection thing.
Yeah.
But I didn't realize there was, actual research backing that up.
There is. It's pretty fascinating, right?
Yeah.
It's not just about staying together longer. Those studies also show that, couples who prioritize their faith, they report higher levels of relationship satisfaction.
Right.
They communicate better. They feel more united.
So it's not just about, avoiding divorce. It's about actually thriving in your relationship.
Exactly.
Which is something we all want, right?
Of course. And I think that's where we can really, bridge the gap between those ancient stories and our modern lives.
Okay.
It's not about trying to perfectly replicate Jacob and Rachel's situation
Right.
or avoid every pitfall that Samson fell into.
Yeah, yeah.
It's about understanding the underlying principles, faith, commitment, boundaries, seeking Yahweh's guidance, and weaving them into our own relationships.
Okay, I'm following you. So it's not about the specifics of the stories, but like those core values.
Exactly.
That makes a lot more sense.
Yeah, and those values, they can be applied whether you're, scrolling through dating apps,
Right.
figuring out if someone's the one, or working on a relationship you're already in.
The Faith Unfiltered host had this awesome analogy.
Okay.
They said, inviting Yahweh into your relationship, it's not some magic formula
Right.
that suddenly makes everything perfect.
Yeah.
It's more like building a house on a solid foundation.
Ooh. I like that.
What do you think about that?
I love that analogy. If you build on shaky ground,
Yeah.
the whole thing's going to crumble when the storms hit.
Right.
But if you start with that solid foundation, it can weather anything. And that foundation for us is our faith.
Okay, I'm getting the metaphor, but what does that actually look like?
Okay.
Like, how do we invite Yahweh in on a practical day-to-day level?
Well, it starts with recognizing that Yahweh, he desires to be a part of every aspect of our lives,
Right.
including our relationships. He's not some, distant figure.
Yeah.
He's a loving father who wants to guide us towards, experiencing the love and joy that he created us for.
So it's not about adding a religious element to our relationships. It's about acknowledging that he's already there
Yes.
and inviting him to take his rightful place.
Exactly. And, in practical terms, that might mean praying together as a couple.
Okay.
Studying scripture together, seeking advice from, people you trust in your faith community,
Right.
making choices that align with Yahweh's values.
I never thought about it like that before. It's almost like having a third partner in the relationship.
Yeah, I like that.
Someone who brings wisdom and perspective and unconditional love to the table.
And that third partner, that's the most important one of all, right?
Right.
Because at the end of the day, our relationship with Yahweh,
Yeah.
that's the source of our identity, our security, our purpose. And when that foundation is strong, it overflows into everything else,
Right.
including our romantic relationship.
Okay, that makes so much sense. But I got to be real for a second. As a millennial,
Yeah.
I'm constantly bombarded with messages that kind of contradict all of this.
Right.
It's all about finding the one,
Mm-hmm.
having the perfect wedding, showcasing your relationship on social media.
Yeah, and that creates so much pressure.
Right.
So much pressure.
It's easy to feel like you're not measuring up, especially when you're trying to balance those messages with your faith.
Yeah.
And the Faith Unfiltered host, they talk about this too. The struggle of trying to date in a secular world.
Right.
That doesn't always get it.
Yeah, it's like everyone's so focused on the superficial stuff,
Yeah.
looks, status, social media followers,
Mm-hmm.
that it's hard to find someone who's on the same page spiritually.
Yeah, I get that.
It can be pretty isolating, especially when you're trying to hold on to your values
Right.
in a culture that's constantly pushing you in the opposite direction.
And it's a real challenge. And honestly, sometimes it feels easier to just give in and compromise.
Right.
But I think it's so important to remember that our faith, it's not something to be ashamed of
Right.
or hidden away.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's something to be celebrated.
Exactly.
It's what makes us who we are.
Mm-hmm.
And ultimately, it's what will lead us to the kind of love that lasts.
I agree. When we approach dating with that confidence and authenticity, we attract people who are genuinely drawn to, our true selves,
Yeah.
including our faith.
So instead of trying to fit into some mold that the world dictates,
Right.
we should focus on cultivating our own relationship with Yahweh
Yes.
and letting that be our guide in the dating world.
That's the key. And it takes courage, especially, when you're surrounded by people who maybe don't understand or agree with your choices.
Right.
But I truly believe that when we prioritize our faith, we open ourselves up to the possibility of finding a partner who shares our deepest values
Right.
and will support us on our spiritual journey.
This is so encouraging. I'm feeling a renewed sense of hope and purpose.
That's great.
I know we're not done yet, but I'm already feeling like I'm walking away with some practical tools for navigating this whole faith and relationships thing.
That's awesome to hear, but hold on tight because we're about to dive into some even trickier territory.
Okay.
We need to talk about how to actually deal with those pressures.
Yeah.
The social media madness, the hookup culture,
Right.
all the things that make dating in the modern world feel like a minefield.
Oh, yeah. That's the real life stuff we all need help with.
Yeah.
All right, bring it on. I'm ready to hear what wisdom you've got for navigating that minefield.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're back for the final part of our deep dive into faith and relationships. And we've talked about these like epic biblical love stories.
Yeah.
And the research on, faith and marriage and the challenges of dating in a world that, doesn't always get it.
Yeah.
So what stands out to you as like the most important takeaway for our listeners?
I think, for me, it all comes back to that idea of like intentionally inviting Yahweh into our relationships, not as like a last resort.
Yeah.
Or a Band-Aid.
Right.
But like as the foundation, the guiding force.
I totally agree. It's not about finding a partner who, checks all the boxes on your list, whatever.
Right.
It's about seeking a relationship that like aligns with Yahweh's purpose for your life.
Absolutely. And that requires, shifting your focus from like outward appearances and, those fleeting emotions to those deeper qualities like character, faith, shared values.
Yeah.
The stuff that really matters in the long run.
The Faith Unfiltered host had this like great line that really stuck with me.
Okay.
They said, Yahweh doesn't just want to be a part of your relationship. He wants to be at the center.
Ooh, that's so powerful. It's not about like adding a religious element to your relationship. It's about recognizing that he's already there.
Yeah.
And inviting him to like take his rightful place.
It's like acknowledging that he's the author of love, like the ultimate source of our fulfillment.
Exactly. And when we surrender our desires to his guidance, we open ourselves up to a love that is deeper, more authentic, more satisfying than anything the world can offer.
I love that. It's not about following a set of rules or trying to force a relationship to like fit into a certain mold or something.
Exactly.
It's about trusting in Yahweh's plan and allowing him to lead you to the right person at the right time.
And that takes a lot of faith, especially in today's culture of,
Oh, yeah.
instant gratification.
Tell me about it.
Endless options.
It's so easy to get caught up in that whirlwind of dating apps and social media comparisons and all of that.
It's like everyone else is coupled up, living their best lives, and you're, stuck swiping left, wondering what you're doing wrong.
Ugh, it's the worst.
But the Faith Unfiltered host, they reminded us, true love, it's worth the wait.
It is, and it's worth the effort.
Yeah.
Building a strong, faith-centered relationship takes, intentionality, communication, a willingness to like put in the work even when it's tough.
It's like anything worthwhile in life, it requires commitment, perseverance, and a willingness to just trust the process.
And a whole lot of prayer. Right?
Absolutely. But prayer is essential. It's how we communicate with Yahweh, seek his guidance, and invite him into the process.
So as we're wrapping up this deep dive, what's the one thing you hope our listeners will take away from this conversation?
I hope they'll be encouraged, to embrace the power of faith in their relationships, to see it not as like a burden or a restriction, but as a source of strength, guidance, and ultimately a path to experiencing the fullness of love that Yahweh intends for them.
Beautifully said. And I hope they'll be inspired to like approach their relationships with intentionality.
Yes.
Authenticity and, a deep trust in Yahweh's plan.
And, I want to leave them with this thought.
Okay.
What if instead of seeking a partner who completes us, we sought a partner who complements us on our journey towards Yahweh?
That's a beautiful challenge. It's not about finding someone who like fills your voids.
Right.
But someone who walks beside you, hand in hand, as you both strive to draw closer to like the source of all love and fulfillment.
Exactly. And when two hearts are united in that pursuit, the possibilities are endless.
This has been an amazing deep dive. Thank you so much for sharing your like wisdom and insights with us today.
It's been my pleasure, and thank you to our listeners for joining us on this, journey of exploration.
And remember, the conversation doesn't end here.
Right.
We encourage you to continue exploring these themes, to dive deeper into the wisdom of Scripture, and to seek out, communities and resources that support your faith journey.
Because ultimately, the greatest adventure of all is the one that we embark on with Yahweh as our guide.
Until next time, keep seeking, keep growing, and keep believing in the power of love that is rooted in faith.
And may Yahweh bless you abundantly in all your relationships.